Let's tell you about Power Metallic. We're not going to tell you anything we don't believe is true, but it's junior mining and it's the capital market, so please do your own due diligence. Jay mentioned we've been blessed by having some really great investors. So the last, and what tracks really great investors is really great discoveries. So we've been very fortunate to make a really great polymetallic discovery in Quebec. And on the investor side, our last two rounds have been led by Robert Friedland. No introduction needed for Mr. Friedland. He's obviously an iconic figure in the industry. Rob McEwen, sort of a similar stature in my mind. He's been there for three rounds, and Gina bought in the open market, drove it from 40 cents to 70 cents. So we've had some great investors and attracted by a great deposit. We're in the midst of drilling 100,000 meters. We reported on about 25,000 of that, another 10,000 to come over the next 2 weeks. And we're in the midst of another 65,000 meters that we'll drill the rest of the year. And we're located in Quebec. A little snapshot of the company. The big takeaway here, fairly traditional Canadian style of company, number of shares outstanding about 280 fully diluted. Significantly, about half of it is owned by the top 8 investors. The point I would make there is that the top 8 investors have all written significant checks over the last 2 years. Robert Friedland's been the biggest individual investor over the last 2 years. Myself and my family have been the second biggest. So it's always good, I think, to see people that know the deal the best still writing checks. I think everyone's in the room because of this slide. I don't think there's any need to know that commodities are going to have their run, and it's about time to get on all the boats you can. So where we're at, we're basically in Quebec, just south and east of James Bay. The reason why you love Quebec is the infrastructure is amazing. So you can drive right off of Route North, right to our site, right to the rigs. We've got power on the site. We're across the road from a major Hydro-Quebec substation. We're outside the town of Nemaska. Nemaska's got a regional airport accommodation for our guys. It's also home of the James Bay Cree. They've been super beneficial for us in terms of working with them and getting additional land. We'll talk more about that in a second. But the Quebec government's done an amazing job of working with the First Nations, empowering them, making them partners. And so, as much as important it is to find a great resource and get rock out of the ground, you got to have an ability to produce it. So NIMBY is a problem in our market, and so that's not a problem for us. Third reason to like Quebec is the fiscal terms. So when we raised that $50 million, the investors paid $1.45, but on 80% of it, we received $2.83. So that was sort of the third or fourth flow through we had done. So in basically in Quebec, you can get 2-for-1 exploration. And then on the development side, when you actually go to develop this, and let's say it would cost us $500 million to do the first phase, 30% would come from the feds, and there's a 25% tax abatement from the province. So nothing quite like it anywhere else in the world. Let's talk about the discovery itself. Started off as we used to be called Power Nickel. We had bought a set of nickel claims really from Critical Elements, 80% of it. We grew the resource from 3.1 million tons of 1.5% to MRE of 7.1, probably have about 8.5 or so there now. As legend has it, we were, drilling about 400-meter holes on the lower left, what we call the NISC nickel play. And we had a couple went longer, so we ended up with 200 meters left in the drill budget. The exploration team said, "Terry, do you want to put some more money in?" I said, "Well, I'll put it in, but I'll put it in through the market." So what do we have for 200 meters? And they said, "Well, we got this thing up on the right-hand side called a Wildcat Zone." At the time, we said, "We think it's another nickel target. We should drill it." And I said, "Great, let's do it." And then we got lucky. We just hit the jackpot. So, in mining, often these things happen. You get a little bit of luck, and then it's what you do with it. So this thing is very prolific. So analysts just suggest we're between 8 to 13 million tons, between 7 to 5% copper equivalent. You can look at these grades. It's just amazing. Since we did our financing in February of last year, this is the underlying growth in the commodities. So commodities are up over 60%. Stock has basically stayed flat to down a little bit. So it's a bit stunning to me. But anyway, this is the story. And we just dropped about 4 weeks ago this amazing set of metallurgical results on a lock cycle test, which is the state of the art of metallurgy. We've been using 80%, so we ended up actually recovering 95%. So to me, that should have been a checkered flag to say to the world, this is going to become a mine. That's what we believe, and certainly that was an outstanding result. When we raised the 50 million, these next two slides were probably what got people to write checks. Generally, exploration companies will thrive with the value of the growth in the ground. So when you compare us with other polymetallics around the world, we're definitely the cheapest, trading probably at 20, 30 cents on the dollar. So I think people felt when they wrote checks, a year ago that we were very cheap. The second thing they probably felt was that there's a ton of exploration upside. So when we found this amazing copper precious metals discovery on top of the nickel, it changed our understanding of what we had. So it went from having like a simple nickel sulfide to having what's called an orthomagmatic nickel copper PGE deposit. So they're super rare, about 20 in the history of the world. And they're literally the world's most profitable mines. So, and the biggest, Oktyabrsky, which is the heart of Norilsk, is the biggest mine in the world, the most profitable. But you can look at these Marinsky's Reef, Voisey's Bay, Xinchuan, Sakatti was the last one discovered by Anglo American 18 years ago in Finland. So Lion is right up there in terms of grade. You can see in terms of grade, there's only basically 2 mines in the history of the world that match what we're doing. That's Oktyabrsky, the heart of Norilsk, and the footwall deposits at Sudbury. The duck-billed platypus was a funny thing. When I first met Friedland physically for the first time, he said to me, he said, Terry, copper and precious metals don't come like this. So he says, one of 2 things has happened. Either you salted the core or you have a duck-billed platypus. I didn't know what to take of that initially. So I started laughing nervously, I think, and he starts laughing, thankfully. So he said, no, we already checked it out. We know he didn't salt the core. So I said, what do you mean by the duck-billed platypus? And he said, well, listen, duck-billed platypuses, have you seen them? They shouldn't happen either, but they do. And he said, I've been lucky in my life to have had a couple of deposits that shouldn't have happened, and they did, and I knew they were big. So he says, that's why I'm in. So there you go. One of the things we realized when we did the financing last year is that 19 times out of 20, these become district plays. So the only one that wasn't was Voisey's Bay. So it's interesting. So we ended up, we believed at the time we only had 46 square kilometers, that we didn't have enough land. So we went out on a shopping spree because after the, Trump announced a week after we closed the Freedom Days, so stocks all got hammered. We thought, well, we can't get re-rated here right now. What could we do that would be productive? So we went on a shopping spree and basically increased our land package by 600%. First, the lift increase, and then the very important hydrolands. So the hydrolands were basically just free. It was free for staking, but there was a restriction on it by Quebec Hydro that had been there for 100 years. So we went to the James Bay Cree and said, hey guys, if we go and ask Quebec Hydro to remove this restriction and put it back in the province, they'll probably sit at the bottom of the pile. But if you come with us, we could make this work. And luckily they did. And we shook our hands on a deal that if we got it, we'd give them some shares, which we did. And we ended up getting this very important ground because for us, Lion, the second half of Lion is probably out here in the Fold Hinge. So while we were doing this, acquiring of land, we didn't drill our AAA prospects because when you're trying to buy stuff, it doesn't make sense to drill right beside where you're trying to buy. So I think that's one of the reasons why the stock was a little bit frustrated last year. People were wondering, why is that happening? We couldn't really tell them. But then, of course, we got the land. And so now we're blazing on all cylinders. 6 drill rigs are rolling, drilling our best prospects. We'll have some updates out next week on the exploration of that. Our guidance, we've been saying, is we haven't found a second Lion zone yet, but we're certainly growing the Lion. So that's super positive. Generally speaking, exploration teams and exploration companies, you need somebody at the front of the stage that can raise money and write checks. So that's my job. And then you need people that can find it. So we've been blessed by having Steve Beresford. He's one of the top geologists in the world, I would say, certainly on the orthomagmatic side, and Joe Campbell, equally talented on the operating side. And so we've been blessed with these 2 amazingly talented and leading a great team. Our most recent addition, Seamus O'Regan, is a former federal minister of natural resources and federal minister of Indigenous Affairs. When you're going to become a mine in Canada, it's going to be important to have these types of figures around you. So just wrapping it up because we're running out of time. Milestones. Generally, we're expecting to continue to ramp up exploration. We expect to deliver, increased resources. We've obviously been buoyed by bullish capital markets in terms of the support. We think that the commodity prices are continuing to be strong and get stronger. We've added 600% to our land package. It's possible we'll add more. We've talked about listing on New York, and that had been the plan. And we'll ultimately do that, but probably what we're going to do is we're going to produce a PEA, by the fall, and we'll delay our New York listing until then because we think it's just too undervalued right now. So that's the story, Jay, and I'm sticking to it.